Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery.
This is episode 16, Denial. Denial. Didn't even notice I'm a liar. When I first came into recovery, I thought I had about 50% of the qualifying traits of my main program. As time went on and I got into the steps and further into recovery, I realized I actually had over 90% of those traits. I was in such denial that I didn't even know I had them. Now, the dictionary defines denial as the action of declaring something to be untrue. I'm talking about something much more nuanced than that when it comes to those of us in recovery. We're not usually talking about the dictionary definition when we see something and say it's not true. It's more like not even seeing it. This kind of denial also includes minimizing things like dysfunctional behavior and abuse. When we come out of denial, we have clarity. We see things as they are. We see abuse as abuse and dysfunctional behavior for what it is. We remember things that we had forgotten, and we put things together that we never saw as related before. It's my understanding that denial is so rampant for people in recovery because denial is the glue that holds dysfunctional families together. As we do the steps and continue down the path of recovery, the denial lifts. Or, to continue the metaphor, the glue becomes less thick and we start to get clarity. Let's start with that acronym I began with. I don't even notice I'm a liar about a lot of things. But the example that comes to mind right now has to do with music. I didn't even allow myself to enjoy dance music because I grew up in a family where I got the message that that's not real music, it's shit. Real music is rock and roll. And I bought that hook, line, and sinker. And then one day I was listening to the radio and Hotel California by the Eagles came on and I hit a wall. That's it. I said, I don't ever want to hear that fucking song again. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a great song and the Eagles are a great band. But they have hundreds of great songs and only about 6 of them get airtime. So I was done. I started using the search and scan buttons on the car radio. And if I liked something, I listened to it. I didn't know what genre it was, what group it was, what year it was from, what album it was from, or even the name of the song. And I didn't care. My only criteria was, do I like it? As a result of my upbringing, I hadn't even allowed myself to realize that I liked other kinds of music. So when I told people I didn't like dance music, I didn't even know I was lying because I didn't even know that I liked it. I wasn't allowed to choose what kind of music to like. I was told this is real music and this is not. And I actually ridiculed dance music and dance music lovers for years. I didn't even notice I was a liar. Then there's not seeing dysfunctional behavior for what it is. If you listen to episode 12 of this podcast, Stop Gossiping, you'll recall that in my family, you never went to the person you had a problem with. You talked to everyone around them. That's called gossip. I remember this one time years ago, my older brother and I were aghast at my younger brother when he directly asked our mom, "Did Dad cheat on you?" We were like, what the fuck were you thinking? Asking Mom that? It was just not an option for us. And we were absolutely stunned that someone would go directly to someone involved in a situation to get information about that situation. It seemed crazy at the time. Now I can see that we'd become so accustomed to indirect communication that to us, it was normal. You may wonder why a sibling from the same family had the wherewithal to break that pattern of indirect communication, and I really don't know. The only thing I can think of is that he was significantly younger than the two of us, and essentially he grew up in a really different family than we did. And then there's denying abuse. When I was 17, and again when I was 18, my father tried to strangle me. It wasn't until I was almost 30 that I understood those episodes as abuse. I had to be told by a therapist that that was abuse. Until she said that, I honestly believed I deserved it, and I didn't recognize it as abuse, even though I had studied things like abuse in my college courses. I still didn't see it. Here's the kicker. The catalyst for him strangling me the first time was that I got a D in physics and burned my report card because I didn't want him to see the comment on the report card which said, "Not working up to potential." When my father found out about this, he lost his shit and went right for my throat. I can see now that that is very clearly abusive behavior, and that a parent's job, especially a father, is to protect their children from harm, not to harm them. But not only did I not see it as abuse for over 10 years, I actually thought I deserved it for getting a fucking D and burning my report card. That's how thick the denial was. Denial also includes forgetting things. When we come out of denial, we remember. And sometimes the memories are not things we had forgotten entirely, though for some people it is. One of my friends in recovery knew she'd been sexually abused as a child, but she couldn't remember who did it. Then, as she got further into her recovery, she remembered who it was and what happened. Sometimes we remember something we haven't thought about in a long time. Like I recently remembered a couple of car accidents I had when I was 16, after which my father absolutely screamed at me. In all the step work I'd done, recounting incidents of my life over and over again, neither of these traumatic events had come up. What was cool this time, though, was when they came up and instead of saying, "My father was a dick, that's why he screamed at me," which is what I always used to say about him all the time, I realized a few things this time. One, it was probably something that was done to him. Two, he simply didn't have the wherewithal to say, "I'm scared that you almost died." And three, maybe even, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." There's so much of my life before recovery that I was completely blind to, that I can see with crystal clarity now. I can see, here's what I was doing, here's what I was thinking, and here's what my motives were. And even if I could have seen those things at the time, I don't think that I had the ego strength at that time to admit them. And I think perhaps that was my psyche protecting me. In this instance, I'm really not sure why I didn't remember those accidents and my father's response until recently, but I know that this time I had compassion for my father in a way I never had before because of my recovery. His behavior was not acceptable, and of course, it was dysfunctional, but at least now I understand, possibly anyway, where it came from. And I'm no longer in denial about the dysfunction. The last thing I'll say about the denial is that as it lifts, as the glue thins out, we sometimes put together things that we never saw as related. One example from my family that seems fairly obvious now has to do with my father and his mother. The story in my family was that my Grammy Nangle, my dad's mother, was a hypochondriac. Now, I have no idea whether she was or not, but that's what the story was. Well, guess what my father did? He became a pharmacist. He became a pharmacist to cure his mother. That seems so obvious now, but I never saw a connection between those things until I was in recovery and looked at my family patterns. So, One of the rewards of recovery, a huge one, is that we come out of denial and we remember. In this case, denial is not simply declaring something as untrue, as it says in the dictionary. It's more like not even seeing it. It's minimizing things like dysfunctional behavior and abuse, or not identifying them as abusive and dysfunctional, forgetting things either entirely or for very long periods of time, and not putting things together that are connected. I hope that sharing my journey out of denial and into clarity has been helpful to you. It's been a very powerful journey for me. That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com, and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.